Why are American body shapes so extreme compared to East Asian?
When I moved to Thailand, weight dropped off of me. I've always had to struggle to maintain my weight, but for the first time in my life, I became thin without trying. When I arrived in Thailand, I was a bit heavier at the time due to having my arm in a cast and being unable to exercise. I dropped 35 pounds in 6 months. Now, I'm absolutely certain it's infinitely harder to be thin in America than it is anywhere else. Thais are not incredibly healthy people. In fact, all their food is fried. I've never seen a culture eat more fried noodles, fried chicken, or put more sugar in their drinks. Also, a tiny percentage of them exercise. If I decide to walk instead of take my moped somewhere, people yell at me, "Are you crazy? It's hot. Why are you walking?" People don't just take strolls in Thailand, in fact, they're almost averse to exercise from what I've seen. Americans are much more active than Thais. Yet, the majority of the Thai population is much thinner than Americans. Why? In America, there is food literally everywhere you go. Going to church? There's donuts there. Going to a work meeting? Someone brought cookies. Going to the break room? It's someone's birthday and they brought cake in there. Going to book club? Chips and salsa. Going shopping for groceries? Free samples around every corner. If you want to eat healthily, you have to refuse food everywhere you go. That's hard. In Thailand, there's never free food anywhere. My mechanic does not have coffee and donuts in his shop. If you want food in church, you bring it yourself. There definitely are not free samples at the grocery store. No free coffee anywhere. Actually, I miss the free coffee everywhere in America. Next, advertising is everywhere in America. They make their burgers and fries look hot and steamy. I'll be driving to school and suddenly thinking about a burger when I'm not even hungry because I saw a picture of it on a billboard. When I watch TV, I'm bombarded with food commercials. Spotify commercials, YouTube commercials, Facebook ads all have food. If you don't want to think about food in America, too bad, you have no choice. In Thailand, the shops I pass don't put up pictures of their food. In fact, most of their menus have pictures taken with what looks like a phone camera. If I wasn't hungry, their phone pictures weren't going to make me any hungrier, unlike the perfectly photoshopped food in American advertisements. Facebook ads are all centered on skincare products instead of food. My cravings all went away. Last, ease of access to food. Drive-thrus make it so you don't have to leave your car to pick up a burger and fries. Pizza and takeout is delivered to your door. If you're hungry, you don't even have to walk or get out of your car to get it. Your craving is an order away. In rural Thailand, if I want food, I have to leave my house. There is no takeout here. Drive-thrus don't exist. You still have access to unhealthy food, but it takes a lot more effort. I have to go to a restaurant and wait for 20 minutes to have it freshly made. I have to get off my motorcycle and go inside a restaurant if I want food from them. It takes a lot more effort to be fat in Thailand. Last of all, there's hardly any cheese, bread, or chocolate in Thailand. Thais eat rice, fried meats, noodles, and soups. The fried food isn't great for you, but I don't think it's addictive. I craved cheese and bread for months after I left America, and without access to those cravings stopped. I've heard cheese is more addictive than cocaine, and I believe it. It's a lot easier to stay thin when you don't have access to it and it's not put in every single dish like it is in America. In conclusion, I think it's way easier to be thin in Southeast Asia than it is in the United States. Though, with Western food making its way into Thailand, obesity levels have been rising. Let me tell you about my day yesterday. I walked into work, and in order to get to my office I had to pass the kitchen. Due to a training course going on, there were some leftover muffins sitting on the table. Not regular muffins either, but the large kind. There were chocolate and blueberry and all sorts of delicious flavors. But I told myself no, and went to my desk to eat my pre-packed soggy cereal. A few hours later, Domino's Pizza surprised us by dropping off about 8 boxes of pizza. All my co-workers rushed out to get some, and I had to sit and smell pizza for hours and not eat any of it. I ate my lunch of coconut rice and spicy Indian coconut sauce with bell pepper. Right by the door is our candy dish that we keep stocked for anyone who comes by. There are Pop-Tarts in there, the vegan flavor too, and Kit Kats. I walk past it several times a day and have to tell myself not to grab a Pop-Tart. My best friend hit me up and wanted to meet at Starbucks after work. I told myself I was not to get my favorite sugary coffee and instead looked up the healthiest tea options. I used to deal with cravings by getting a mint my coworker keeps. Her mints are sugar-free and barely have any calories. But my other coworker surprised us by bringing in real gourmet peppermints. I looked up the nutrition, and a serving size, 3 mints, has a total of 15 grams of sugar. That's 5 grams of sugar per mint, which is the same amount as in a mini Reese's peanut butter cup. I limit myself to 1 per day maximum as the result. Towards the end of the day, my co-worker sent out an email announcing that there are bagels in the kitchen that were left over from training that day. I broke down at that point and went to get a bagel. I didn't expect that the bagel would be a large bagel instead of a regular size. I also didn't expect it to be a cinnamon sugar bagel. But by that point my willpower had been greatly depleted. It was delicious. I picked off some of the cinnamon sugar and ate the melted cinnamon sugar towards the center. I left about a third of the bagel uneaten, but even that was hard because I wanted the whole thing. I met up with my friend after work and did order a tea instead of a fancy drink. Though even their tea is full of sugar. By the time we finished chatting, we needed to do some grocery shopping. I did my absolute best not to impulse buy, but I was positively starving since it was later in the evening and all I had had was tea. Afterwards it was about 7 p.m. at night, and since I was starving I caved and went into Subway, which was right across the way, and ordered a veggie sub. The guy asked me if I wanted chips, and even though I can usually resist, I was so hungry I said yes. I did choose the baked Lay's instead of regular, but that was the extent that my self-control could handle. I also got a 6-inch sub even though I felt like I could order a bigger one. I went home and devoured my chips and sandwich. I resisted having any dessert outside of one absolutely gluten-free coconut chew because I had that bagel. I also tried to snack on some bell pepper slices which are low in calorie, and I grazed on some other snacks. Basically at the end of the day I concluded I would have to chalk it up to a cheat day because I didn't eat very healthy. But despite that, the effort and willpower I had expended had been quite the feat. The day before that, a local frozen yogurt shop had dropped off cups of frozen yogurt for us. Sometimes it's donuts, cookies, or cupcakes we get brought. But we get junk food all the time. And I work a desk job where I sit most of the day. Thankfully, my work now offers an hour-long yoga class during the workday. This doesn't take into account the ads and commercial for food, the fast food restaurants everywhere, the hidden sugar in everything, and more. Our portion sizes are extravagant, and food is everywhere. Genetics, of course. Genetics and biological diversity. When you say American, you are talking about Europeans, Asians, Africans, South Americans, Indigenous Americans, and every race and ethnicity bred together or recently immigrated. All the ethnic groups in America tend to have very diverse appearances, including short, tall, blonde, redhead, brunette, natural African hair, blue-eyed, brown-eyed, skin colors ranging from pale as alabaster to dark as mahogany. All of these people intermarry and produce offspring that is even more diverse. Some might say, extreme. Even among white Americans, you have multiple ethnic groups that look very different. You have people like me, who are very tall and pale with large broad shoulders and blue eyes, Scandinavian, and people who tend to be more petite with dark hair and more olive complexion, Italian. In East Asia, there is not a lot of size diversity, hair color diversity, skin color diversity, or eye color diversity. Most people have small skeletons, black hair, dark eyes, and similar skin color. The height is also similar. This is due to a lack of genetic diversity in a population that has been fairly isolated from outside breeding for many years. If you took all Asians together, including Indians, Maori, Nepali, Korean, etc., you would find a lot more diversity. If you mean ability to gain weight, that is also genetic. The Asian side of the family is filled with people who simply cannot gain weight no matter how much they eat. The Asians are also highly prone to type 2 diabetes at low weights, because it is difficult for their bodies to deal with any weight. It is interesting to note that the Pima Indians in America came over from Asia on the land bridge many years ago, and they are all having extremely high rates of diabetes. Also, culturally in America, people do not sit down to eat very often. How often is a meal an Atkins bar or an Ensure shake? For me, it is almost every meal. I have not prepared food for myself for several years. I just grab that nutrition bar and eat it at my desk. I am fully aware that this is not healthy, but long hours and stress make it a constant. When I was visiting the public school in China, there was a 2-hour lunch break, with a huge meal that I could not finish, followed by an hour for literal napping. There were literal recliners in the hospital for doctors to take a lunch nap. I could not figure out how I was eating so much food in China, including tons of oil, and not gaining weight. Like literally an entire can of oil that I mistakenly thought was a can of soda was served with my lunch of spicy hot pot. People ate the entire can of oil, everyone had one. I have lived in South Korea as a kid for 3 years and then 6 years as an adult in the United States, taking on over 30 kilograms in weight once in the United States, arriving from Western Europe. Thus I believe I am somewhat qualified to answer this question. First of all the food in the US is superloaded with calories. In large part it's due to the abundance of sugar and fats in foods you would not expect it in. Bread is a notable example. Peanut butter, food that's actually considered as somewhat healthy in the US due to its protein content, is another good example. All of those foods contain a large amount of calories for a small volume, thus leading to a lack of feeling of satiety for the same amount of calories in the United States. Those foods are often also rapidly digested, leading to a recurrent feeling of hunger. East Asian food, on the other hand, contains large amounts of fibers, protein, and water, all of which contribute to the long-term feeling of satiety. Second, and a corollary to the first, is the abundance of vegetables in the East Asian diet compared to the American diet. One of the staple dishes in South Korea is japchae, stir-fried glass noodles with vegetables. The main source of calories is starch in the noodles, notice, no sugar whatsoever, and proteins in the meat. Vegetables contributing a lot to the taste and feeling of stuffiness. As a result, a portion along the lines of 400 to 500 kilocalories would keep you feeling full for the better part of the day. That's about the same thing as 1.5 slices of pizza, hardly enough even for the lightest eaters to be full. Similarly, the other staple, kimchi, is basically 100% vegetables, 0% calories, and combines with a minimal amount of rice can fill you very well. Even the most unhealthy foods, such as Korean barbecue, come without any sugary sauces. Just look at the barbecue sauce composition or calorie content, but with an abundance of vegetables, both fresh, salad, shallots, as well as pickled. The US-style barbecue is instead slathered in sugar-based sauces and comes with corn or potato salad as a side dish. No vegetables. Almost any country that sees the transition from the traditional vegetable-based diet to the US similar fat and sugar-rich diets experiences a similar jump in the weight, China being a prime example. Finally, East Asian food is significantly more flavorful than US food. A lot of times, when I feel peckish, I am not necessarily hungry, just looking for something flavorful, an experience. With food loaded in flavors and spices, for example kimchi, that craving is satisfied much faster than with bland foods, for example peanut butter jelly sandwich, leading the occasional snacking to lead to significantly fewer calories taken up this way. This is a fairly similar experience I had with the French/Italian food versus US food. Despite being as fat and sweet, if not more, and given the populations have much less exercise, the Europeans tend to be significantly slimmer.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future also. Don't forget to like and subscribe to you never miss a video.